coming back to your purpose is the opposite of your childhood trauma. So if you want to know what that looks like, just think back to like, what did you really struggle with in your life? What are some of the things that you really wanted as a child? And now, how do you then use that in your adult life? And if you're still like, I'm not really too sure what it is, because our purpose can feel so effortless, right? It's something you're so good at and you're so effortlessly good that you don't even realize that it's a skill. Welcome to the Story of Spirit podcast, where practical spirituality meets real life. Hi, I'm your host, Sheetal Story. I'm a psychic medium, grief support counselor, professional astrologer, and a human design reader, and of course, a law of attraction master coach. With my unique blend of spiritual and practical tools, I am here to help you align with your soul-led purpose and ignite a life that sets your soul on fire. In this podcast, we are going to explore the principles of energy, astrology, spirituality, and psychology to help you heal your grief and create an aligned life and business from the inside out. Whether you are looking to deepen your intuition, understand your cosmic design, or transform your business, this podcast is for you. Join me each week for insightful discussions, practical tips, and inspiring stories that will guide you on your journey to living your very best life. Don't forget to subscribe and follow us on Instagram at Sheetal Story or wherever you listen to this podcast. Let's dive in and start this transformative journey together. Welcome to the Story of Spirit podcast. Today, I want to talk to you about a bit of a controversial topic. And I didn't realize it was controversial, honestly. It's something that I grew up kind of knowing, and it really popped up in my mediumship and in all the spiritual teachings and learnings and all the things, that you are born with a soul purpose. Your soul came here with a purpose, something it wanted to experience as an umbrella to all of the experiences you have. So it's not just one thing, it isn't just here to be a mom or here to be an entrepreneur or here to enjoy delicious food. There's something, yes, those are all parts of it too, but it's this one big umbrella, and every soul has a purpose. Every person incarnates with something that their soul wants to experience overall as a theme in their lifetime. And I didn't realize that this was so controversial, because a lot of times, people, and depending on what you believe, and, I'm not here to prove anything to you, please do listen to this episode and see how you feel at the end of it. I had a client who was very prolific in the industry, and she's like, I think soul purpose is a load of hoo-ha. And I said, well, why? Why do you think that? She said, well, you don't just have one purpose. And I said, then you're thinking too small. I said, think broadly. If you really chunk up, chunking up is an NLP term, neuro linguistics programming. It is, chunking up means, can you see the bigger picture where everything is relevant? If you chunk down, you start to see nuances within a thing. So, for example, I don't know why this is coming to mind, but bicycles, right? Bicycles will be chunking up, right? You have a bicycle. Okay. Everyone has a bicycle. Well, you don't have a bicycle. We can chunk up even higher. Do you have a mode of transportation? A mode of transportation would be a bicycle, an automobile, a bus. What is the mode that you get around in the world? And then chunking down would be a bicycle. And if you chunk down even further, it would be a type of bicycle, maybe a unicycle that you like to ride. And then if we chunk down even further, it's a make of a unicycle. So, that chunking up and chunking down, that's an NLP term. And we use it a lot in coaching because it's a way that we find commonality. I also use it a lot in negotiation and in conversations with people, that we can find a commonality. If we can find that commonality and you can see yourself in me and I can see myself in you, then we have more humanity for each other. And you might notice that that's missing on social media, right? It's them versus us, and you're sheeple, and all these terms that we like to call people. As soon as you start calling people names, you are othering people, right? And so you're sort of making them not you, right? That's them and this is us. We're dividing the world. And one of my jobs, and I know one of my purposes, is to create belonging in the world. And so in order to do that, then we are not separate. You can see me in you and I can see myself in you. And so we are in each other. And we are all of humanity. We are all humans. We all want safety and belonging and love and worthiness. So we're all here together. You know, you're not different than me and I'm not different than you, but our identity, our brain likes to create this division, and it's necessary for our spiritual lessons, right? We can't, if we just think, oh, yeah, you're me and I'm you, here, take all my money and no worries, I'll just give you all my time because I love you. And, we don't have any identities. Like, we actually come into incarnation with an identity that separates us from each other. And then we also come into a family that has its own history, its own trauma, its own beliefs, its own way of moving through the world that's different than other families. And depending on what part of the world you're from, that's a whole other ball game, right? So that individuality is part of our spiritual nature. It's part of realizing ourselves as a soul being, and as a human being having this, or soul having this human experience. We've come here as a facet of the divine. So everything that you are is also in God and source in the universe. You're not, I love to say this, you're not really special. Like, you are special and you're not, right? You're a special combination of the divine's traits and characteristics. And you're not special in that those traits and characteristics are in the world as well. It's very rare that someone is the one and only, but you are truly the one and only you, with your traits and characteristics, with your look, with your energy signature, with the way that you've come from your ancestry, that there will never be another you in the world. So while we are separate and we are individual, we are also not, right? There's so many of us in the world, and we also long for belonging. It's part of our nature as a biological, entity on this planet, that we want to belong and we want to feel safe, because when we're in a tribe, then we can't get attacked, right? We can't be eaten by the tiger. We have a space, someone will help us to survive. So that connection is so important to us, and yet we are so individual. And just like your individuality, your own traits and characteristics, your own goals and loves and preferences in the world, you also have a very unique soul mission in this lifetime. So that soul purpose lives out through you. And you're always in it. I think it's really interesting when people are like, I don't know what my soul's purpose is. And like, you don't know where you are now. Like, you are doing it now. Well, regardless of what you think it should be or how you're comparing yourself. When we think we're not in it, it means that we've seen it outside of ourselves, and it's not. It's always within you. Your soul is always leading you in that direction. And when you're in soul alignment, you feel joy, you feel excitement, you're inspired, you're creating. And when you're not in alignment, you feel jealousy, anger, rage, envy, sadness, depression, all of those lower vibrational energies. And I want you to hear me when I say this, is all energies are important. All emotions are important to the human experience, right? We're not doing any high vibes only today, y'all. Like, that's not a thing. That's super toxic. We get to be in all of it. We are a rainbow, a tapestry of emotions and experiences. And your emotions just tell you when you're in alignment with your soul and when you're not in alignment. And we inherently, our brain's only job is to keep us safe. It likes the known. So when we are moving into the unknown, we will have periods of grief, of sadness. Inherently, when we grow, we are shedding, we are letting something go that we are no longer aligned with, and we're moving into a new part of ourself. We're creating a new identity, that this new identity is now then in resonance with this next part of your life, this new desire. So one of the things I love to do with especially in my membership, is called future casting, where we sit in our future self, we sit in our future life, and we start to then work backwards, right? Begin with the end in mind, from Stephen Covey, is that you begin with the end in mind. So with this desire, this future that you can see yourself in, that you're feeling yourself in, now, how do we get there from here? What do we have to become? What identity do we have to take on? And what do we have to delete, release, love, integrate? Thank you. Next, right, into our lives, because you cannot continue to do what you've been doing and get a new result. You'll get the same result, right? So when you think back in your life, all of the parts of you that you have been, a really great way to see this evolution of your soul is through your values, because your values will change in life. And I remember my younger self thinking my values are going to be my values forever. So young and naive, right? So naive. That younger you had different values. The values that I had in my 20s, I tell you what, so different than my 40s. I value sleep now above everything, above everything. That sleep, well, not above everything, obviously, because I know kids and things and family, but sleep is so important to me. If something goes past 10, I'm like, oh, that's probably not for me. Like my 20s, now I'll stay up all night, go, maybe have an hour's sleep and then go to work. Like it's not, it was so wild, and the body will bounce back in your 20s when it does not in your 40s, I'm telling you. So this the values that you have in that time in your life are so different. I valued freedom, I valued travel, I valued money, my relationships, my family, my like mom and dad and my brother, very low on my priority list, right? Very low. They were just there, you're kind of a person of the world and you're able to just go out and experience, and that's a privilege. I fully recognize that that is a privilege that I had. My values now, my kids and my husband, top priority in, I'm second on that list. But and then sometimes I move to the top on the list depending if everyone's okay. But as a parent myself, when someone says to you, you should be the first on your priority list, it's like, you don't have any kids, do you? Because if they're in the hospital or they're sick or someone calls from school and crying, guess what? Everything else gets pushed to the back and I'm on my way to pick up somebody. So, such is life, right? And it's the same thing if you have a pet. If your pet is not well, you are not well in life. Like it's just, I remember having kids. My oldest son had a lot of health issues at a young age. He had 16 ear infections by the time he was 18 months old, and he was breastfed. So, all that stuff about breast is best. I don't know about that. Um, and yeah, 16 ear infections, and then he had massive allergies early on, and the doctor's like, no, he's too young to have an allergy. No, that's not it. And he had eczema, and the doctor's like, no, just newborn skins are like that, and skin is like that. And I was like, something's not right, something's not, I felt it. And then my mom, met my baby, and my mom's like, this is not right, and I'm like, oh, okay, the doctor said it was fine, mom. The doctor. My mom's like, no, it's not right. This is not how babies are. So she started to help with more homeopathic things. And we started to really experiment and realize that he was so allergic at a young age. But again, there was no science at that time that supported it. And now there's so much that is aware. I mean, he's 18 now. So much has come out about allergic babies and the trilogy of asthma, anaphylactic, and eczema. Those are the triad. And they can actually do a skin test now when they're little to sort of tell you if they will have this triad. So they did not, back in that day, back 18 years ago. And we were experimenting with this little soul. And everything this little soul needed from me became my purpose in that moment. I had to step forward and just be the mom and put everything else to the side. And it was fine. That was something I really was negotiating with my bosses at the time. I had a really fantastic boss, and he's like, Sheetal, go to the hospital. My son had meningitis twice in his life. He's had a pinched blood vessel in his brain, a high chance of stroke at one point. Like it's been a roller coaster of medical issues. And I'm so thankful that we decided to move back to Edmonton so that we could be supported by our family. And in those moments, I was thinking, I know this is going to be a little bit of a twist for you. I'm not going where you thought I was going, is I felt this all has to do with my son's purpose in some way. His soul came in to have these experiences. And unfortunately, there was so much pain that he has had to experience in his little life already that the only thing that I can sort of see is this has to have some meaning at some point in his life. And sometimes our we go through these hard things for our own purpose, but sometimes we also go through it for others. So on the very first time he had meningitis, I was starting to see clients already on the side, evenings, weekends, and holidays. And when he was sick, we were taking turns being in the hospital with him. And then we also had a younger child at that time. And we're trying to sort out, childcare and parenting, and then also never leaving him alone because we were logging his meds. We had caught a number of times where the meds were not going to be administered properly. We are very hyper vigilant when we're in hospitals with our children, and with due reason, So we were negotiating that, and so my husband's like, well, you have readings on the weekend, so how about, I'll take the weekend shift at the hospital, and then you can be home and still do your readings and then come afterwards. And I was like, yeah, okay, okay, I don't want to disappoint my clients and stuff. And I hung up the phone and I called my best friend at the time, and she's like, are you crazy? Like, what are you doing? What is your priority? I was like, my son, of course, but Jason's going to be at the hospital. She's like, are you going to be able to read for people when your son is in the hospital on death's door? Like, really, Sheetal, is this really the priority? I'm like, I don't want to let anyone down. And she's like, this is your people pleaser out of control. And I was like, oh, yes, it is. And I had to reschedule everybody. Of course, it was the right thing to do, but it's so wild in that moment that I was like, I don't want to let anyone down. These are my people. These are my clients. They're coming to me. They're paying me for a reading, because I was just building my business too. And my ethic, and I'd seen it through my parents, was as hardworking. You don't let people down. Your word is your word. It's your integrity. And in hindsight, I was like, man, I was skewed. Like, I really lost sight of what was important in that moment, because there was two competing parts of me, right? This mission to help people be of service, and of course this being a mom, and it's like I was trying to negotiate both of those things, and really I realized that the mom piece was the most important thing, and moving everything else to the side. And the wild thing at the time, now in hindsight, of course, was all of those people that I had to reschedule. I think I scheduled like 8 people. They were so understanding. They all were sending love and healing for my son, because I was honest with why we were negotiating, or why we were rescheduling. And they actually, many of them, when they did come to see me eventually after my son was better and home, brought him stuffed animals and brought him a card. And like, it was so sweet. So these people were really, really caring. They weren't just clients or customers, they were people that actually genuinely cared about me. And I've never had that experience before in corporate life, in sales and marketing. Like, this was so genuine. And building my business in this way has continued from that moment on, because I deeply care about my clients. I think it's a reason why I'll probably never be a board certified psychologist, because I care about you. Like, I can't not show it in a session, and I can't not be emotionally connected but unattached. I am unattached to your outcome. Is your outcome. I'm not responsible for your outcome. I'll give you all the tools. I'll shine my light. I will cheer you on, but you have to take the steps into your own healing, right? And I think that was a really great learning experience for me, to be like, okay, I know my purpose, but I also am here to be a mom and hold space and healing for my own child. Of course, right? If you're a mom, if you're a parent, that is your soul decided it wanted to experience, having another little human, another little soul that you are stewarding into this world, and depends on you. So then he got meningitis a second time. And I was like, what is this madness, right? They don't tell you you can get it twice. You can. And we were like, what is this? And I remember calling my girlfriend and like, what is this about? Like, I've rescheduled everything. Work is no longer the priority. I don't understand why we're having, like, I understand I was probably part of the first life lesson, the life of this experience. Second time around, like, is there a test? And she said, this one isn't for you, Sheetal. She said, just watch the helpers that are coming in. And it was wild, because like many of the nurses and doctors that came through, and my son is very caring and kind, very sensitive, and he would talk to these people like you know, they were like on his level, like that he was an adult, talking to these adults. And there was so many, so there was a lot of, one of the things when you have a child that's ill a lot, you are very aware of people who do kind IVs, who are able to do needles and IV lines with such care and sensitivity and are able to do it with painlessness, as much painlessness as possible. And then there's some real butchers out there, that just kind of jab you and it hurts and you're bleeding everywhere. And, it is an art, I'm going to have to say. Nurses who can do that are just, man, like they should be paid triple. It is a really hard thing, especially for kids, to have multiple pokes. And he had so many antibiotics and pain meds and anti-nauseant stuff that was going in. He had to have two lines in him all the time, and then his veins would collapse. And so they eventually put in a PICC line, which goes into the heart. So it's done surgically, but his IVs, where he was going through multiple, and he would just freak out, which then amplify his headache, and then he would throw up, and then it would just spiral. So every time we had a nurse come to do the IV, I said, how are you at doing IVs? "Oh, I'm pretty good. I know I do IVs." I'm like, "Sorry, you're not able to do this IV. Can you find another nurse that actually specializes in children with sensitivities to do the IV line?" And I remember having so many nurses look at me like I had a horn growing out of my forehead. They're like, "No, my job is to do IVs." And I said, "Yeah, and if you're not sensitive and kind, then I'm sorry, you can't touch my son." And I remember, like, some doctors and nurses being shocked at that, but then when I explain what happens when he gets worked up and the pain and all the things, I'm actually protecting my child. So, we actually had one guy, he was a nurse who specialized in doing, IV lines with a butterfly needle, which is, like, a very sensitive, it's a little one for kids, and I think they sort of use also for diabetics and stuff. I'm not too sure of all the terms because 'cause I'm not a doctor, but, this man, I mean, I call him a man, but he was actually a boy. Like, he was he was in his early 20s. He was the sweetest, kindest, blonde little boy. I mean, he's a little boy, but he's little, but he's a man, I'm doing a disservice to him. But he was this wonderful man, and he would come to do his lines every time they would collapse, and they got a rapport with each other, and Caden would be like, "Hey, it's nice to see you. I'm so glad you came." And he's like, "Oh, buddy, like, how are you doing? And I'm sorry you have to have another line in." We were in the hospital for about 10 days. And he would come in, and we got to know this guy really well, actually. So when we were discharged and we were walking out of the hospital, he was walking the other way in his normal garb. So he was clocking out for his shift and he was not in his scrubs anymore. And Kane went up to him and said, "Thank you for everything you did for me." And he gave him a big hug and they high-fived. And I said, "Thank you. You are in your purpose and mission. I so appreciate the work that you did." And he's like, "Thank you so much." And he started to turn red. Just like he's about to cry. I'm just gonna go. So we were walking in the other direction anyway to get to our car. I'm like, "That was really nice." And he's like, "Yeah, I think you should know that he changed my life." And I was like, "Oh," like, so, you're doing your purpose even in those moments where you think you're not, is the point of that. Your sole purpose weaves through everything that you're doing. And in that moment I realized, well, that was just one person that Caden interacted with that maybe changed their trajectory, or maybe even um emphasized that they were on the right track, that sort of validated you're exactly where you're supposed to be, and hopefully gave him some feeling of like, yes, I'm doing this job, and it's good, it's helping people. So your purpose isn't just like this thing that you're like, "I'm here to help people," or "I'm here to be of service," or "I'm here to hold space," or "I'm here to create belonging." These are all feelings that you're creating for yourself first and then for others. And your purpose is the opposite of your childhood trauma. So you go through hard things, and it's not, again, like there's big T trauma and small T traumas, they call it in psychology. And it's all the way that you felt inside. So if your mom forgot your birthday and that created a feeling of like, "I don't belong here," or "I'm not enough and I've got to do more," and now you help people realize that they're worthy and they don't have to do more, and burnout is not a strategy. It's actually a trauma response. That could be your purpose. That would be the opposite of your childhood trauma. So it's not, being attacked or divorce or whatever, awful major things can happen to you at a young age. that that seemingly have no, like, what's the reason that children get cancer? What's the reason that my son was so ill at a young age, even though we did everything right? We really tried to do everything right. And it turns out that my son is the perfect mix of all of the allergies in our entire family, both my husband's and my side of the family, going back generations. And, all of the things that, like, when my husband had his tonsils and adenoids out, my son had to have his out as well because he couldn't breathe, and they were getting infected over and over and over again. So it's just like all this perfect storm for my little cute little son came into this world and to experience this in some way. And so I think in spirituality, we like to believe. And, is this true? I have seen that it's true, that it provides meaning later. You don't know it when you're going through it, but on the other side of it, it gives you something that you didn't know before. Another example of, if you were a survivor of something really tragic or horrible that happened to you, you now have knowledge about what that feels like. You have knowledge about your own process, not necessarily everybody's process, but your process that's going through it. And then maybe you decide you want to write a book about that. Maybe you decide you want to go into counseling and help other people who are going through that. Maybe you were bullied as a kid and you decide you want to be an advocate now for children who are bullied. Like, it is wild how the things of our life change us and make us who we're meant to be. And from a spiritual perspective, and I'm going to say also from an astrology lens, that we can see those hardships in your early childhood. That blew my mind, because if I can see you're going to have divorced parents in your childhood, like I can see it or you're having a hard parent, a parent that you struggled with, that is going to influence you and create a person that is then going to have certain traits and characteristics, certain experiences, that is going to shape you, that is then going to prepare you for what you're going to go through down the road. And your purpose is intertwined in that. So, the opposite of your childhood trauma is where you become in service to others, where you learn from that and are now doing out in the world because it gave you that trait and characteristic, that resilience, that knowing, not the knowledge, not reading a book. There's a knowing that's embodied in you because you've been through it, that now you can help others. I would say my purpose is to create belonging, because at a young age, I felt very much that I didn't belong here. And when you think about that, my parents are immigrants to Canada. My mom's from Malaysia, my dad's from India. They settled in the west end of Edmonton, which is not ethnic. The ethnic part of Edmonton is called Millwoods. So on the south side, we were on the west end, so completely different area of town. I grew up in a multicultural school, and my mom cut my hair and sewed my clothes, bless, right? And thrifty is all good, not bad. And as a kid, I just stood out apart from my peers, especially in elementary school. All I want to do was fit in. And I just noticed on TV and in the schools and all my friends, the people with light eyes, light hair, light skin were coveted and figured as beautiful. And that's all I ever wanted for myself. I wanted to fit in and I meant to stand out. I'm East Indian. I think I've mentioned on a podcast before that, like, when I go to India or go to Malaysia, I stand out like a sore thumb. Not only do I have a different accent, the way that I carry myself, the way that I look at people, the way I talk, my mannerisms are so different that I don't belong there. And then when I'm here, I very much stand out, exotic looking, I guess, is what my husband says. But I don't look like anyone else here. And I think when I realized I was meant to stand out, I was not meant to fit in, I'm not meant to be like everyone else, then I realized that part of me that chose this, my soul chose to look this way, it's on purpose, because I'm meant to be maybe on stages, maybe on TV, maybe, on the internet. It's not, I stand out. You remember me, that's why when I'm in like when I'm in a course and I sign the media release, I'm very aware, because I love red, right, that I will likely be in the media pictures and graphs, and people are gonna be like, "Oh yeah, you took the course, Sheetal. Did you like it?" So I stand out. Like, you will see me in a picture. And as a child, I hated that. But I realized that's part of my purpose too, right? It's part of me, that my soul is so wise. It chose this body, it chose this face. If you think about your body, your face, your stage of life, everything has been divinely chosen. your body type, all the roles, all the stretch marks, all the things, they're all part of you, and your soul chose that. And maybe it's to then go on a mission of health and wellness, or maybe it's on a mission to accept yourself, lumps and bumps and all, and see how it's all beautiful. I've talked on the podcast before about stretch marks and how I was so embarrassed about my stretch marks. And now realizing everyone has stretch marks. It's not, the beauty industry makes it seem like models don't get stretch marks. Lies, lies. And the more that I realize that, wait, like this body and everything about it is so perfect, I stopped hating it. I stopped trying to change it. Instead, I started to try to be healthier. And that changed everything. Move it a little more, eat better, drink more water, get my vitamins in. And I notice my quality of life goes up. So I like that. I want more ease in my life, right? Why not do the things that create more ease? So coming back to your purpose is the opposite of your childhood trauma. So if you want to know what that looks like, just think back to, like, what did you really struggle with in your life? What are some of the things that you really wanted as a child? And now, how do you then use that in your adult life? And if you're still like, I'm not really too sure what it is, because our purpose can feel so effortless, right? It's something you're so good at, and you're so effortlessly good that you don't even realize that it's a skill. There's so many people I've read for, and I'm like, oh, you do this thing. And they're like, yeah, everybody does that. I'm like, no, I don't do that. I don't have that. We can often sort of keep our world as our bubble and not realize, I mean, gosh, I truly live in a spiritual bubble. When I talk to people who are outside this world and they're like, what? I don't do that, or I don't believe in that. I was like, what? Is you okay? You want to talk about that? Like, I'll show you all the science, the psychology, the information behind it. But man, I really truly do live in this world. And it's the same thing with your purpose. You've lived in it your whole life. You have this ability. I used to have a office in the girls' bathroom in high school where people would come and ask me for advice. We'd sit on our coats and we would talk, and I would help them with whatever they were going through. And like, that has been with me forever. And actually, that was born out of a childhood trauma of helping people to prove my worth, to be there for people so that they see that hey, she's actually a good friend. But then when things came around, then I was nowhere. When the fun stuff happened, no one remembered Sheetal, but everyone remembers Sheetal when the bad things happened, because I would walk with you through it. So if you're still not sure what your purpose is, you want to ask your 3 closest friends who know you very, very well, and just ask them, when you're struggling, what do I help you with? Like, what's my gift? Do you see something in me that I do very well? What's one of those things for you? And just see what they say to you, right? They might open your mind to a part of you that you, again, have just normalized and be like, this is just who I am, right? But every soul is born with a purpose. Every soul is important. There's no such thing as extra souls on this planet. What I used to do a program called Discover Your Soul at Purpose. And I remember the first time when I launched it out, it was right after when COVID hit. And I remember a troll came for me. And, well, not to say that she's a troll, but she was like, you're scamming people. There's no such thing as soul purpose. And I said, isn't it sad that you were sold, this lie that you don't have any purpose? You're just here existing. You actually are so important. Your mission, what you do with your friends, with your colleagues, with your community, however big you want to shine your light, is important. It matters. You have a very special place that you play in this world. And when you're gone and you take your last breath, that is now vacant, and another soul might come in and take that place, because we need it. It is a cog in the machine. Like, without that cog, the machine doesn't really go very well. So you're important. And I think I've seen a lot of people, and I've known a lot of people through friends, colleagues, courses, and things I've taken, where they didn't think their life had meaning. And it breaks my heart, because your soul does have meaning. Just look around at all the people you have intersected with in your lifetime, right? All of the trajectories you have influenced and changed. When you are born, you are now set on a trajectory where you are going to intersect with people that are going to change your life, that you are going to change their life. You affect this planet with your vibration. You have purpose, you have meaning, you are here on divine timing, and your mission is unfolding. So if you don't know what your purpose is, hang in there. Right? Every step you take will uncover it for you. If you're interested in signing up for my Discover Your Soul Lit Purpose, DM me or email me back. My contact information is in the show notes, or you can just send me an email. You can find me anywhere. I'm on all the socials, literally, and just let me know you're interested in it, and I'll let you know the details of it and when it's going next. At this point in time, we're just on a wait list to see if there's really any interest, because I'm letting the universe tell me now what's the next steps and where do people need support. So, if that's something you need support with, let me know. We can see soul purpose in your astrology chart, in your human design. In there's a worksheet that I have people do that it's with your skill set, what you love to do, what's your past experience, and what the world needs. It's called Ikigai in Japanese, which is your soul purpose. What is it that you came here to do? And when you do it, it feels effortless. It feels easy. It feels so good in your heart that it's not, you don't have to try so hard. You know, what's meant for you will find you. This is so innate. It's literally in your DNA. And you are just walking the path as you listen to your intuition while creating safety for your nervous system, because you're doing things that are new and exciting for you. So, wishing you joy as you walk your soul's purpose, as you enjoy life, as you uncover your next steps. And I just hope you hear in this episode that you matter, that your soul is so, so important for this time and space reality. You chose to be here during this moment in history, and I'm so glad you did. Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Story of Spirit podcast. I hope you have found inspiration, support, and practical insights to help you align with your soul-led purpose and live a life that sets your soul on fire. If you have enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to the podcast, leave a review, and share it with a friend. Your support helps us to reach more listeners and continues to provide valuable content. I sincerely appreciate every share, and I know it is how most people find me. It is because caring people like you have shared me with them at the right and perfect time. For more resources, insights, and to connect with our community, please visit us at www.sheetalstory.com and follow us on Instagram at sheetalstory. Remember, your journey to a more aligned and vibrant life is just the beginning, and I am here to support you every step of the way. Until next time, stay aligned, stay inspired, and keep shining your beautiful light. This is Sheetal Story, signing off from the Story of Spirit podcast. Here's the legal ease that's required by our lawyers. This podcast and the YouTube channel represents the opinions of Sheetal Story and her guests to the show. The content should not be taken as medical, psychological, or financial advice. This series is informational and entertainment purposes only. Because each person is so unique, please consult your healthcare professional, your mental health dream team, your financial advisor, or anyone else that's an expert in the field in where you are thinking of making big choices in your life.